2025, an extraordinary civilian mission set sail across the Mediterranean. The Global Sumud Flotilla. Its purpose: to break Israel's naval blockade of Gaza, deliver humanitarian aid, and amplify the voice of a besieged people. In this video, we'll journey through who joined, their motivations, the dangers they faced, the Israeli interception, and the ongoing struggle for justice and aid access for Gaza. This is their story, and the story of Gaza. Historical and contextual background. To understand the significance of the Sumud Flotilla, we must first understand Gaza's blockade and past attempts to challenge it. Since 2007, Israel has imposed varying degrees of land, air, and sea restrictions on Gaza, limiting essential supplies, infrastructure, and civilian mobility. In 2010, the Mavi Marmara flotilla was forcefully boarded in international waters. 9 activists were killed, and the event drew global outrage. That tragedy became a symbol of resistance and the high stakes of maritime activism. Fast forward to 2025, Gaza suffers from acute shortages of food, medicine, water, and shelter. Many aid convoys by land are delayed or blocked. The Sumud Flotilla is born in this context, intending not only to deliver aid but to break the silence and assert the right to humanitarian access. Founding and organizers. The Sumud Flotilla was organized mid-2025 by a coalition of civil society movements: the Freedom Flotilla Coalition, Global Movement to Gaza, Maghreb Sumud Flotilla, and Sumud Nusantara. Smud means steadfastness, a term used to embody Palestinian resilience. The flotilla aimed to be the largest civilian maritime challenge to Gaza's siege to date. The Sumud Nusantara, for instance, is a Southeast Asian solidarity group including volunteers from Malaysia, Indonesia, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, the Maldives, Philippines, and Bhutan. They coordinated logistics, communication, and regional awareness campaigns. From Europe to North Africa to Asia, the mission drew support, funding, and volunteers. The organizers committed to nonviolence, open documentation, and transparency to counter narratives that the flotilla was a provocation. Who joined in their stories? Greta Thunberg, Swedish climate activist, was aboard the lead vessel Alma. Mandla Mandela, grandson of Nelson Mandela, was among detainees, prompting strong calls from South Africa. Ada Colau, former mayor of Barcelona, was detained during a boarding of the Sirius ship. Numerous parliamentarians, legal experts, journalists, medical professionals, grassroots activists, and ordinary citizens risked their lives. Each had a reason. Some sought to bear witness, others to deliver supplies, many to protest the injustice of a people under siege. One activist from Norway, Elin Frøysa Nordli, described being hit by drone attacks near Crete, experiencing chemical irritants and smoke. These individuals carried with them hope, documentation gear, prayers, and the burden of representing Gaza's pain to the world. Preparations, route, and logistics sailings began in late August and early September 2025. The convoy left from ports such as Barcelona, Genoa, Otranto, later joined by boats from Syros, Catania, Tunis, and Greece. They converged en route to sail together toward Gaza. The vessels carried symbolic but essential supplies: food, medical kits, water purification tablets, baby formula, medicine, and other life-saving goods, intended not as bulk cargo but as proof of concept and moral demand. They traveled with live streaming, satellite trackers, coordinated communications, and legal observers to document every step. Organizers warned of possible drone harassment, engine sabotage, electronic interference, and forceful interception. In the run-up, one vessel docked in Sidi Bou Said, Tunisia, was reportedly targeted by a suspicious flaming object or drone, damaging gear and disrupting operations. Another boat, dubbed Family Boat, faced engine trouble near Crete and had to fall back. Despite setbacks, the flotilla proceeded into what it called a high-risk zone, approaching Gaza's maritime limits. Harassment, drone attacks, and disruptions. As the flotilla drew closer, reports of harassment intensified. Activists claimed drone attacks, explosions, chemicals sprayed into air, and jamming of communications. On the Alma, crew saw as many as 15 drones overhead and heard multiple explosions. They donned life jackets and grouped in safety zones. One disturbing detail: radio signals aboard some vessels were overridden by unfamiliar transmissions. The broadcast of an ABBA song was reported, apparently to disorient and mock the activists. These acts, activists claim, amount to psychological warfare, aimed to intimidate non-violent participants. Israel has not publicly confirmed every claim but maintains broad authority to enforce maritime security near Gaza, interception at sea. Roughly 75 nautical miles, 120 kilometers from Gaza's coastline, the Israeli Navy moved in. Armed soldiers boarded the flotilla vessels. Some interceptions characterized as forced, others as escort to port. Reports describe water cannons, stun grenades, and aggressive maneuvers. Jerusalem Post videos from the flotilla showed activists huddled, hands raised, faces fearful. Israel claims that the vessels were attempting to breach a lawful naval blockade. However, activists and legal scholars argue that in international waters, peaceful humanitarian missions have rites of passage, especially when civilians' lives are at stake. By Thursday, Israel stated that all but one vessel had been intercepted. The remaining ship was claimed to be in a holding position some distance off Gaza. One ship, the Marinette, was reported to still be sailing strong, albeit contained offshore. Another Meccano attempted to reach Gaza territorial waters but reportedly was stopped just short. Boarding, detention, and transfers. After boarding, Israel transferred hundreds of activists to Ashdod port for processing. They were held in detention, interrogated, and prepared for deportation. Israel maintains that the activists are safe and will be deported to their home countries. Italy announced that its detainees would be repatriated between October 6th and 7th via charter flights to Madrid and London. South Africa demanded the immediate release of its nationals, including Mandla Mandela, calling the interception a violation of international law. Human rights organizations strongly condemned the action. Amnesty International called the interception an unlawful act and claimed Israel is using starvation as a weapon against Palestinians. Israel defended its actions as enforcing a legal naval blockade and preventing attempts to enter a war zone. In Israel's view, activists were attempting to breach security measures during an active conflict. The Israeli Navy claims it acted with coordination and relative restraint. Global reaction and diplomacy. The interception triggered an international uproar. Governments, NGOs, citizens rallied in protest. South Africa called for Israel to release its activists and criticized the violation of the International Court of Justice's provisional orders. Reuters, Spain, Turkey, the UK, and Italy condemned the seizure as a breach of humanitarian law. In Europe, protests erupted in cities such as Barcelona, Milan, and Rome. Demonstrators demanded that Israel allow a maritime corridor to Gaza. At the UN, officials pressed Israel to allow unhindered aid and to comply with its obligations as the occupying power under international law. Amnesty International, in its statement, charged Israel with deliberately starving Palestinians and criticized repeated threats made by Israeli officials prior to the flotilla. The flotilla's organizers and supporters insist the mission was peaceful and urgent, arguing that blocking it deepens Gaza's humanitarian catastrophe. Current status and what comes next. As of early October, most detainees are preparing for deportation. Italy's government confirmed its plans. The Israeli Foreign Ministry asserted that all vessels were intercepted and are being returned to port. One vessel, Marinette, remains offshore under constrained movement. The flotilla's impact, even if materially limited, is significant as a symbol of defiance and a demand for international accountability. Legal, ethical, and moral arguments. In international law, a coastal state's jurisdiction usually extends 12 nautical miles. Beyond that lies international waters, where ships enjoy freedom of navigation. Critics argue Israel's interception in international waters of a peaceful humanitarian mission violates the right to passage and humanitarian access. Israel counters, stating that during armed conflict, a blockade zone may justify interception, especially where security concerns and weapons smuggling are involved. Yet Gaza's blockade has been characterized by many as collective punishment, affecting millions, undermining their right to food, medicine, and life itself. The flotilla is deeply symbolic. It challenges the idea that political or military control can silence an entire population's right to survival. The moral imperative is clear: when people starve and die, silence is complicity. The world must act. Voices and personal reflections. Let us hear from those who risked everything. One participant said, "We didn't come for fame. We came because Gaza's people have no voice left." Another, "They boarded us in the dark of night, but they could not erase our witness." Activists describe nights filled with drone shadows, fear but also determination, prayers and mutual support. Greta Thunberg, in a statement, called her detention an abduction and affirmed the mission's humanitarian nature. Ada Colau, before her detention, posted a video accusing the boarding as unlawful and urged pressure on governments. These voices are not just individuals, they represent thousands of pallets in Gaza who cannot speak freely, who hunger, who survive under siege. Gaza, the ground reality. To understand why this mission mattered, we must see Gaza's suffering. Over 65,000 Palestinians have been killed in 2 years of conflict. Hospitals are overwhelmed, electricity is sporadic, clean water scarce, and food aid insufficient. The blockade restricts entry of essential goods, hampering recovery, medical treatment, reconstruction. Many areas are declared famine zones. The daily reality includes death, disease, displacement, and despair. In this context, the Sumud Flotilla shine as an act of solidarity, demanding not only aid, but dignity and access. Key lessons and takeaways. The Global Sumud Flotilla was a bold civilian mission to break the blockade and bring attention to Gaza's humanitarian crisis. Hundreds of international activists risked their lives to sail in solidarity. They faced drone attacks, communications interference, and a forceful interception in international waters. Nearly all vessels were seized and dozens of activists detained. This is not just about boats. It's about human rights, about justice, about the right of a besieged people to receive life-saving aid. Gaza's suffering demands solidarity, not silent complicity. The struggle continues. Thank you for staying with us. The Gaza crisis is ongoing, and the voices of the oppressed must not be drowned. If you want sources, maps, transcripts, or references, check the description. Share this video. Speak up. Pressure your leaders. Support organizations providing aid. Let Gaza's story not be forgotten or silenced. We sail in solidarity, for justice, for dignity, for humanity.